Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today's episode is called Joe Rogan's $100 million contract nightmare. Joe Rogan has reportedly signed a podcasting contract with Spotify for more than $100 million. We'll tell you what no one else wants you to know. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, follow, and comment on the show, as well as tell you that there's a company called HollywoodIsCalling.com. It allows you to purchase live calls with more than 100 celebrities. You can purchase a live 15-second call with your favorite movie star for $19.95. And you can purchase a live 30-second call with your favorite star for $29.95. It's a lot of fun. You can select from movie stars, TV stars, or athletes. You can purchase it as a gift for yourself or for somebody you care about. So give it a try. HollywoodIsCalling.com. Now let's get started. First, I want to congratulate Joe. Closing a 9-figure deal that allows you to retain complete control over the creative content of your show is a significant achievement. You know, achieving that in an industry where people don't surrender an inch, where people routinely refuse to pay others for their services, where people lie and cheat and steal and manipulate each other and abuse each other and mistreat each other. Rising above that heap, that mess, and negotiating a deal like that on such terms is an incredible achievement. And I have to commend Joe for that. But there are some issues. And some of these issues are fantastic. First of all, this means that podcast valuations are now off and running to the races. Because of the new milestone that this deal created, that Joe's deal created, I believe that podcast valuations are going to soar into the stratosphere, and that a lot of content creators who are just eking by are now going to be receiving more substantial offers, and that some marquee content creators, you know, the top 25 or maybe even the top 50 content creators, they're going to begin receiving some substantial offers from some incredible media companies. Why is that? It's because everyone's looking around the landscape now, the entertainment and the media landscape, and they're saying, do we really want to dump another 50 or $100 million into a movie or a television show, and then spend a lot of sleepless nights praying that something good comes of it, or do we invest in a podcast and pay some kid $5 or $10 million and hope that he becomes the next Joe Rogan? Well, there's going to be a lot of those discussions around the boardrooms, a lot of those discussions at talent agencies, and a lot of people are going to start looking at their asset allocation plans. Where are they going to put their money? Where are they going to get the highest returns on their new investments? And they're going to say one word: podcast. That's where the money is going to begin to flow, and it's going to begin to flow quickly. So one thing that I would do is I would caution most content creators is to be very careful, because if you're about to receive 1 or 2 offers, you may receive half a dozen over the next 12 months. Why is that? Because a lot of offshore media companies are now going to be looking at American content creators, and they're also going to be making offers to them as well. So I think all of that is good. Now let's get into some of the challenges. Joe's contract is supposedly worth more than $100 million, but let's assume that it's just $100 million, and let's say it's spread out at a minimum over 2 years. Let's say that Joe's currently paying 13% state income taxes in California, because California has a very high state income tax rate. That means that for every $100 million that Joe Rogan will make off this deal, he'll be paying 13 million plus in state income taxes. Think about that. That's incredible. And if this is a longer contract, or it's a larger dollar figure than people realize, let's just say it's not just more than $100 million deal. Let's say it ends up being a $200 or $300 million deal, because perhaps Joe hits some milestones. that are incorporated into the contract. If that happens, Joe will pay an additional $13 million in taxes, state income taxes, California state income taxes, for every additional $100 million that he makes. So why does that matter? I'll tell you. Because Florida, Texas, Nevada, zero state income taxes. Now, relocating himself and his enterprise to one of those states would immediately save him at least $13 million. If this is a long-term contractual commitment, if Joe decides to stay in California for a while, then his savings could potentially be much, much more. So there's something else to worry about. That's something called tax creep. What's tax creep? Well, California already has one of the highest taxation rates in the country, but being a liberal democratic state, they plan to just keep increasing those taxes. And if they do, Joe may not be limited to 13% state income tax. He may be hit with 14 or 15% down the road, 20%. If California starts defaulting on their bonds, if the city of Los Angeles or the state of California, if they start defaulting and they start getting desperate and they start looking around for people with enormous wealth to slam with taxes, who do you think they're coming after? They're coming after Joe and everybody else who's earning Joe money. Now, I know that Joe has said repeatedly that he loves Southern California. All his friends and family there are there. He loves, congregating and socializing there. And he also loves all the celebrities that Southern California has and that he can routinely access for his show. That's all great. But none of that is worth $13 million. And I'll tell you why. If you relocate your show to Texas, for example, you now have the budget that allows you to fly guests in for every episode. You can book flights, book hotels, and bring a new guest in every day for every show. That's well within your economic ability to do so at this point. And you'll still have a ton of that $13 million taxes that you'll no longer be paying to California left over. But there's more. I also understand that Joe loves going to the comedy store all the time. He loves hanging out with his comedian friends. So there's another solution for that as well. Joe, you could easily lease out a building in Austin, Texas, get a liquor license, open up a bar/comedy club, and then fly a new comedian friend of yours in every week, have them headline at your club, have them appear on your podcast, and then you can put them up at a hotel nearby and socialize them throughout the rest of the week. You don't have to worry about being disconnected from your friends. That problem is solved. Oh, and by the way, now that comedy club that you're leasing, not buying, don't buy any real estate in this market, but that you're leasing, now that's going to be making additional money for you and your comedian friends. So look at it that way. It's a win, win, and a win. Now, there are more problems, and some of these are nightmarish. A lot of places in California, it's not just San Francisco, it's Los Angeles and a lot of other places, they are no longer responding to a lot of 911 calls. What happens when you call 911 in a lot of these towns is they'll immediately qualify you. They'll filter your call by asking you what is the exact nature of your call. And if they don't deem it to be significant enough, they will not dispatch police anymore. If in San Francisco, if a criminal walks into your store and steals a $990 item and gives you the finger as they're walking out the door, or maybe they just decide to sit on the floor and play the accordion just to thumb their nose at you, showing you that they'll steal your stuff and that you can't do anything about it. The police, once they realize that less than $1,000 has been stolen, they won't dispatch a squad car to your location. The same thing with a lot of other crimes in Southern California, Los Angeles, for example. If the homeless are involved, if you're being robbed or or your place is being burglarized, or if it's a drunk driving call that involves, uh, you know, illegal aliens or homeless. A lot of these departments will not dispatch the police anymore. Are the homeless people shooting up heroin on the front door of your establishment directly outside your store? They won't respond. It is amazing. Why is that an issue for Joe Rogan? Because Joe, you're no longer just a millionaire. Now you're going to be worth more than 100 million. And that means the days of you walking around town without security, that's over. Especially in an environment like Southern California. Forget about it. You're going to have to invest in professional security to get from point A to B. And that is going to be your new reality. I mean, you can wear ridiculous disguises and big rubber noses and glasses and hats and all of that. That might work for a few minutes, but eventually the word will get around. They'll realize that you're an easy mark, and that will cost you. You know, you have to factor in the cost of security. And in a place like Southern California, it will be substantial. Now, there's another problem for Joe, and that's called peak California. What does peak California mean? It means that assets in California have peaked, and that now that everybody is fleeing the state, moving out regularly, assets like real estate, they're dropping, and they're dropping precipitously in value. So what does that mean for Joe? My understanding is that Joe owns a mansion in Calabasas, and that he owns a commercial building, a very large commercial building, that he uses as a studio for his podcast, and that he uses as a gym and sort of a hangout for himself. So both those assets are going to be worth less every day from this point going forward. So that's not a trivial consideration. So Joe's going to be losing on that front as well. Now there's another issue for Joe, and that is traffic. Southern California has the worst traffic in the world. Everywhere you go requires hours of sitting in traffic. So why does that matter? Well, let's assume Joe makes $100 million, and let's assume that he works 40 hours a week. I suspect it's much more than that, but let's assume he works 40 hours a week. That means that Joe's time is now worth $25,000 an hour. Why does that matter? Because it means that every hour that Joe's stuck in traffic, going nowhere, doing nothing, it's costing him 25 grand, hour after hour after hour. You want to drive across town, spend 2.5 hours in traffic each way, that's 5 hours. What's 5 times 25? That's $125,000 drive. Think about that now. That's really insanely expensive. That's a cost of doing business for Joe now. Now he'll be able to use Zoom video a little more often than he does, but for the most part, if he wants to go to a comedy club, if he wants to go do business with his agent somewhere, whatever it takes, if there's a drive involved, it's going to cost a fortune. So having said all that, I still want to wish Joe well. I want to congratulate him on his very significant business achievement. And I want to thank everybody else for watching, and we will talk to you soon.